our International Empathy Trainers Association, the first meeting. So welcome everyone. And we want to start with some introductions with our mural here. So I'm Edwin Rutch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and I put some pictures up here of me with my Occupy Empathy tent. I set this up in downtown Berkeley, and for 2 weeks was there advocating for more empathy in the world. And I'd love to take this to the current Trump demonstrations. I think it'd be great to have a whole team. Actually have 2 of these tents. I'd love to take them to the Trump rallies and kind of offer empathic listening. That was a workshop at UC Berkeley I did out on the lawn. We had the empathy tent set up there. I've kind of set it up in different places. This is Sproul Plaza on the Berkeley campus, and Sproul Plaza was the home of the free speech movement. And I set up the empathy tent and said, we have the free speech movement that started here, but everybody's speeching and nobody's listening. So we need to have an empathy movement, a free empathy movement. So we had a whole bunch of students and stuff there. And so in terms of, in terms of intention, what's the intention? So the main intention I'm looking at now is to create a empathy trainers, an empathy training tool, online curriculum and MOOC, massive online course, and also to get this Empathy Trainers Association started. So I think there's really a need for us to get together and everyone who's doing empathy training or supporter of empathy to start getting together and supporting each other. And this is what this meeting's all about. So that's kind of a quick intro for me. Lou, do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Edwin. This is Lou Augusta, and my one claim to fame, if you will, is that I am the author of 3 books on empathy, academic scholarly works, including A Rumor of Empathy, Resistance, Narrative, and Recovery. And my commitment and the project, is to expand empathy in the community and in the universe. And I wish to acknowledge you, Edwin, for being the most inclusive person I have ever met. I think it's great. It was somewhat an accident that we met somehow out in cyberspace. And I am inspired by the opportunities for collaboration and working together. And so I am developing a empathy training workshop. And I'm here to share about it and contribute about it, and in effect to practice generosity and give away aspects of it as appropriate and insofar as they can be understood using group technology and media and the like and stuff like that. So great to be here. Ask me anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Kathy?
Yes, I'm going to try to enter a link here in the chat because I couldn't learn how to enter any images. So I'm going to just write a link over here. If anybody wants to go see now or later. I'm Dr. Kathy McGuire. I have been teaching empathic listening and Gendlin's experiential focusing skills since the 1970s. I'm director of Creative Edge Focusing, which I didn't even put my name in there properly. I have a lot of curriculum for teaching empathic listening and experiential focusing. I have an email e-course that sends out actual exercises 3 times a week. I teach Gendlin's focusing, which now Edwin and I are calling that self-empathy focusing. as well as Roger's empathic listening. And it's important to me that those two things, empathic listening and self-empathy focusing, are two sides of the same coin. I'd like us to keep those together, that when we talk about teaching empathy, we are also talking about teaching self-empathy. And it's hard to be an empathic person in the world if you don't know how to do self-empathy, how to be kind and to listen to yourself. So, I have started many listening, focusing communities as support groups that become really supportive communities. I'm interested in how, when people share empathic listening and experiential focusing turns as peers, a phenomenon happens that I call empathic bonding. When you really hear and see the other person, you become moved to care about that person in a community way. You'll start bringing them casseroles when they're sick. It just really comes out of there. Empathic action comes out of that empathic bonding. So I'm really interested in that. I would wish that there could be as many empathic listening circles in the world as there are 12-step groups, and that would be my goal. I have not succeeded in 40 years toward that goal, and I have found it quite a lonely road. So I'm very happy to be with Edwin finding this association of others with similar interests. And I want to share here today what I've learned in starting the International Association of Focusing-Oriented Therapists. And I'd like us to keep the making of this association simple, so that people don't get scared away by the amount of work it might involve. So I'll talk more about that later.
Oh, great.
Nice to meet you all.
Great, thanks.
Done.
Okay. Maria,
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So I'm Mireia. I'm Dutch and live for the last 10 years in Slovenia. I'm happy to be on the call and am contributing, first of all, with a graphic recording of this meeting, which I will be sharing after the call. I will hand this to Edwin, and it will end up with all the documentation of this meeting, so you will be able to see and maybe make use of it later. My background originally is in design, which for the past more than 15 years I've been leading in a design agency, the design department. Besides that, in the past 4 years, 3.5 years, I started to train myself in NVC, nonviolent communication. I'm guessing that most of you are familiar with this term. And currently I'm participating in the BNVC leadership program on nonviolent communication, as I would like to make use of what I've learned and combine this with visual communications to empower trainers, empathy trainers or nonviolent communication trainers into bringing their knowledge and their gifts in a way to the world that they have more impact. And so there is for me the field of combining my my design skills and background in this, which means also as well that I'm also slowly on the way of becoming a trainer in nonviolent communication myself. So it's a combination, and I hope that I can contribute to this meeting from both perspectives, actually. So that's me.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, great design background, so really excited about that. Okay. Raj, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, my name's Raj Gill. I live in British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. And what brought me to this call is I've been, looking at some of the posts made by you, Edwin, and I'm also a certified trainer in nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. And for the last 10 years, I have been practicing nonviolent communication and teaching internationally as well. I think what touches me the most is when people are seen for who they are and understood for who they are, how things shift so much. What brought me to this call is the United States election at the moment, and particularly Donald Trump. I am so disheartened by the way he speaks and by the way people applaud his speech. And so are we really that empathy deficit that we don't recognize that calling people names and saying things like that are just not something that we should be modeling and demonstrating in leadership role? So a huge disappointment for me. We're holding an international intensive training in Whistler in November, and I would like to invite a lot of people to come and see what a compassionate community looks like, what this dialogue is about. It's not about changing the world, it's about changing how we receive the world. So, and I'm very encouraged by the fact that we want to use this technology to do this. Because if we're going to inspire the younger generation to join us, text-heavy books, etc., are not going to bring them in. I think communicating in the models that they're using to communicate is what's going to inspire them to bring them in. So that's why I'm willing to learn so that I can be part of the world that they're in, so that conversations can take place at different levels. And I'm not going to pronounce the name correctly. Muriel, as you mentioned about Bay NBC, that you with Mickey Cashton's organization, how important it is that we include people who can carry this message forward. So that's a lot about me. I'm very inspired, and visuals really help me because I'm a very visual learner. Does technology challenge me? Yes, it does. I'm willing to be challenged.
Okay, great, thanks. Were you able to move within the mural window? Have you?
I made some effort to sign in and do all of that, but other than that, I didn't do much more.
And we have a new person joining us just in time.
Yeah, we're just doing introductions. Bill, you're up. You'd like to introduce yourself and intention for being here? We're not hearing you. It looks like your microphone might not be working. Or, oh, well, hopefully it may hit the wrong button. Okay, so let me get back here, stop sharing for a second. So this was the first meeting for the association, and I thought we could use this design process to jump right into designing the organization. You use this human-centered design. I know, Maria, you're familiar with it, and Kathy, you've done a little bit with it. We did a previous workshop with it. And Lou, have you used this much, or Raj, have you?
The short answer would be no. I have not used this technology, but that's not going to stop me, I presume.
And Raj?
Well, I worked in microbiology for 30 years. I love technology, but have not used this one.
Okay, well, this is coming from the humans.
Let me ask, are we expecting Bill in this group?
He hadn't signed up, so I'm not sure what, I hadn't seen him. So I had thought, let's jump right into a design workshop. I've been promoting it on the list, but we don't have a huge turnout, so I'm thinking it might have been a bit of a mistake that it might be too complicated. It might have been too complicated to jump in, that maybe we should have done just like a 1 hour, initial, maybe like an empathy circle or just a dialogue process, and then kind of build up to this. But I did want to get everyone kind of familiar with this human-centered design process, because I think it's a like a super great tool set for what it is that we want to do with designing an organization. And there's a great tool set, and also I think the human-centered design process is doing a lot to get the importance of empathy out into society. Because let me just give a little bit of an intro here about the design. So it's becoming really popular in the university. Like this is Stanford, which is really the center for the human-centered design. I would say the Silicon Valley companies like IDEO. And this is, oh, let me put a screen share here. I'm showing it, and they're not sharing it. So this is the D School, the design school at Stanford. So they've got a whole department there just working on design, like, this process that we're using. And I've taken, 4 or 5 workshops there using this design process. And this process you can use for designing anything, a product, a service, a culture, an experience. And then there's another design school in Berlin. This is the one in Berlin. So it's in Potsdam, so they do kind of design work there. In fact, it's sponsored by the CEO of SAP, which is the largest German software company, and they gave like $130 million to Stanford to create the design school there. And then there's organizations like Design for America. This is in a lot of the Ivy League schools around the country. They have these groups that use design for social innovation, for designing for social good. You can see these are the universities that they're in around the country. This is UC Berkeley's design department, and I live near UC Berkeley, and they just added design as a minor to the curriculum here. So it's a pretty, you can get a minor in human-centered design at the Berkeley Institute for Design. I think they're competing with Stanford. They got like $100 million or something to build a whole new facility just for design. And these are design thinking in the K-12 schools around the country or around the world. So there's schools that are, K through 12 schools that are built up, either using human-centered design or are from the ground up using kind of like project-oriented teaching, which this is like project-oriented teaching 2.0. And you can see, if you look in the Bay Area where I live, let me just zoom in here real quick. And you can see it's a real hotbed. It's probably the most design, at least 20 schools here in the Bay Area that are incorporating this human-centered design process. And in the process, they always talk about empathy because it's the, beginning step for human-centered design. And this is San Francisco Design Week. So here in San Francisco, Bay Area, from June 2nd to the 9th, they're doing, in all of these different companies, they have different workshops about design and different presentations. So it's pretty big here. IBM is transferring from being, they started a design department at IBM, and the idea is that's going to transform the whole company. So the whole company wants to become a design-oriented company, and the same way with SAP, the German software company I was mentioning. And a real leader in this is the company IDEO, and this is, they're a design company that's been doing this. They started with Apple computers, designing for Apple computers, and Apple's a design really oriented company. And they have a nonprofit version of IDEO, which is IDEO.org, and they're designing for poverty, how to alleviate poverty in the world. So they've got a whole initiative of using design for alleviating poverty in the world. And what's the last one? Here's the IDEO design kit. So here's this online design kit for all these tools for using human-centered design. And so that's kind of listed a little bit of an overview of the design, you know, what's going on with design. And here's, I wanted to give a quick overview of just about the structure of design. And this is based on the design school, their introduction to design thinking. And design thinking has these 5 steps that it goes through. It starts with empathy, that to design anything, you need to empathize with the people you're designing for. Once you gather the information, the insights, the needs for what people need, you define a problem area, you go in and ideate, you brainstorm solutions, you take the solutions and you quickly prototype, create a tangible prototype, and then you go out and test the prototype, and then you start the whole process again. And this is a little bit a different view of the process. So when you go into empathy mode, it's like an open-ended, you know, when we start empathizing with each other, it's a very open-ended, kind of non-directed, especially in person-centered approach, it's very non-directed. But then when you gather all the insights, you kind of hone in, well, that's kind of a divergent process. And then when you have gotten the empathy, all the insights, you hone in, and then you define the problem. And once you define the problem and you're narrowing down to this specific problem area, again, you go into brainstorming, which is kind of the creativity, which is, again, a very open-ended, divergent process, way of being. And then you kind of hone in on the prototype and the test. You kind of hone in on something specific to prototype and test. And here's another view of it, is that the design process is empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test, and it's iterative. So we go through the process once. That's what I was hoping we would do in the meeting today. I just kind of wanted to introduce all these different concepts, because going forward it was like a tool set that I thought we could use. And we would go through one cycle here, and then the idea, though, is that once you've gone through one cycle, you start over again and you test whatever it is we create, and then we empathize with people how the test works. And so that was it. So that was the little bit of introduction, and this was in the mural was just a playground. Nobody kind of came in and played with this, but this was a place where you could go in, you know, kind of just play with mural, kind of get familiar with the process, and because mural is like this super great tool for doing the whole design process. And then within the design, they use a lot of these, what they call canvases. So like after you've done the interviewing with empathy, you can go in and you can organize the insights into, for example, into an empathy map to kind of get familiar, you know, to kind of create a picture, kind of a mental model of what people's needs are. And so this was just an example of that. And so there's all kinds of tools like that. So so that's just a quick introduction to what I was thinking of doing. I don't know, just how does that land with everybody? How does, you know, what's kind of coming up for everyone around all this? We can just go around, maybe just share what you're thinking, or
I can share what I'm thinking.
okay.
This is just a feeling. I've expressed it before. This is just me. I am so unattracted to this model, this intellectual way of approaching what I experience as empathy as such a face-to-face, loving connection between people. I can barely stay in the room because it's so intellectual and so far removed from what I love to do in terms of empathy. And I feel like in my 40 years of trying to spread empathy, I and that movement have suffered a lot from an kind of an intellectual takeover of what for me is so body and heart centered. So to me, it feels like, oh my goodness, here's more of the same. I just want to almost cry.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to sit here and have us each have 5 minutes, you know, to say our thoughts about an empathy association or whatever. This whole thing about all this putting it on paper, it is so antithetical to who I am and what I love about empathy. But I'm just saying that. That's just me. It's not trying to change a whole movement or anything.
Great. Yeah, this is really what we want to hear. We want to hear how this lands for everyone and kind of empathize with that. So, yeah.
I have appreciated, Edwin, all the technology you have introduced me to. You brought me out of the dark ages, even with a Google Hangout, and how to turn that into a YouTube. So I'll probably learn something really useful out of this, too. I just want to say my body responds to it. So I'm done.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Because we really want to design this so that it kind of works for people, and this is great to know. Lou, do you have any thoughts for coming up?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm here because of my commitment to expanding empathy in the community. And, you know, to err is human, to really mess things up requires a computing system. And so here I am. You know, I'm struggling with the technology. I hear, you know, some struggle in what Kathy is saying. I'm not sure I have quite as, I'm just going to say it, quite as, you know, viscerally negative a reaction. Nevertheless, I don't know the tool, and that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. What's missing is my experience with the technology. This is not a dump on the technology day. Maybe we can schedule one of those for later. And I find that I actually am able to get focus and type something, and it's just too small for me to see. I'm having usability problems. Maybe I need a bigger screen, but I've got the MacBook Pro screen that I've got, you know, and so whatever, it's fine, you know. And I'm here because of my commitment to empathy that is unstoppable and non-negotiable, so to speak. That's it.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Maria, do you have a feedback?
So, just a small one. I was especially touched now with what Lou said about I'm unstoppable in bringing everything about empathy into the world. So it resonates in me, and I really like seeing that as I'm the youngest here among us, that with all this technology, which I grew up with, and it's also like this Google Hangout, actually in this particular one, a beginner, and it's saying, yes, go for what we want to be doing, and accept that we all bring in different ways of giving birth to this association. And I guess that we have enough empathy and self-empathy to be there for each other, to deal with what comes up, whatever it is. So I also like hearing from Kathy the more, how to say, doubtful or even aversion, which I understood against such a design process, as it brings awareness to when to use something, when is something useful to make use of, and when is it a matter of a burden. So to stay conscious about the choice we make of what we use and how we do it, so that it's serving as many as possible. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thanks. Raj?
I think here I'm being asked to complete after everyone's shared, so I have a bigger perspective of how other people have experienced this. So I'm at an advantage in that sense. I would look at this not just as an either or, that either we do this human thing about one-on-one, that beautiful feeling of being in empathy with somebody that just touches the deepest part of us, and that the technology can't do that. I try not to look at either or. I'm looking at how can we make a combination of these things that gives each person what they're looking for from this. And parts of when you were sharing, Edwin, I needed to do my own self-empathy, saying, wow, the world is changing, and I need to be, if I want to be a part of it, and if I want to be unstoppable in creating a more empathic world, then I'm going to have to walk with the people who are using this medium, this context, and create that space within myself so that I have the openness to receive it. And Kathy, I'm very touched by what you shared, because it's a very tender space when we are in empathy with somebody, and I hold a huge empathic space for that too. Mm-hmm. And want to make sure that we're not throwing away the baby with the bathwater. The technology is going to connect us in the future. Mm-hmm. It was complicated at times. I wanted to shut it out myself, but I knew that we wanted to create space for all of that.
Absolutely. I do want to say there's in me there was a sadness, oh my gosh, hundreds of millions of dollars have been donated numerous times to create these, what I perceive as intellectual design, business-oriented, let's call it, centers. It's oh my goodness, what would have happened if those hundreds of millions of dollars went into creating empathy circles in every community so that people would know how to respond to Trump and to police violence and all those other things. What a different world it would be. And on the other hand, if that's where the money's going and that's where the interest is, of course we have to find a way to ride on those coattails. If they're using the word empathy in it and it's going out all over the world and there's millions of dollars behind it, I have to find a way that is a step forward. And to use it. So
yeah, and I'm inviting us to look at it as not either or, that one will get lost if the other takes over. How to link the circle concept electronically as well.
Yeah, now as I think about it, I've been doing a lot of the human-centered design process. I've probably led, maybe 20, 30 of these design processes, online. So I've really been getting into this, but I'm really seeing that it probably should have started with just some circle processes to begin with, like a la what you're talking about, Kathy, just to do like a 1 hour short circle to do the empathic listening, to start with the empathic listening to get people connected with each other, to and then start building a group, a community, on top of that, and then kind of have it maybe be graduated. So this part, the design, would be farther down the line when people are kind of they've already established connection and kind of gotten into it. So.
So Edwin, I'm reminded about what Marshall Rosenberg would say: connect before you direct.
Connect with what you direct?
Connect before you direct, or connect before you correct.
However,
yeah.
However, you have brought us together, and through our introductions, just our simple introductions that took maybe 1 or 2 minutes, I do feel connected to these people, and I feel to each of you, and I feel so excited about the work you're doing in the world and your commitment. That already, let's not put down what you've done here, Edwin. You got us connected, so it's not.
Well, I feel pretty good because you're a friend. Mireya's a friend. Lou are friends. So I feel like I'm here with friends, and Raj, we're becoming friends now and just meeting. So I feel pretty good about that. I'm just thinking about, what's the best way forward.
Uh-huh.
With the...
So just I wanted to say, Edwin, I hope you're not hearing this as criticism. You're hearing this as an honest expression, because we know and trust that we can hear each other.
Yeah, I hear it that way. Also, I like within the human-centered design, they have a philosophy or different principles, and one of them is fail early, fail often. The idea is that you have to have an open mindset that if something doesn't work, you're kind of learning from it, and just to accept that it's, and then you just kind of reorientate, and that any kind of a new endeavor, is going to have failure, and that, you just kind of accept it and actually celebrate it. So, like in the workshops I've done at the Human Centered Design at Stanford, they would actually do exercises on failing. So you would have like an exercise, doing some physical hand thing where you kind of try to match somebody else's movement, and then you would fail, and then you would feel into the experience of failing, like, oh darn, I failed, and then you would celebrate to transform this feeling of failure into a celebration. So I think it's a really great thing to think about. So I don't have any. I'm just trying to think of what we can do that would be kind of effective.
I wouldn't want you to throw out your model too quickly just because I raised some other side. So I just want to be taken in. I would be concerned that now you would suddenly say, okay, we got to start with empathy circles first. And I wouldn't want you to make such a dramatic change on the basis of just this sharing. But it's worth thinking about.
Yeah, I think going forward, I'll like the next meeting is on the 8th, and I think we could just do an empathy circle to start with that. But I did want to show in the, so on this page, this is our second page here, if you'd like to go into this page.
You'd have to make it appear.
Oh, it's in the...
click on the link?
Yeah, you can just click on the link and it'll open the next page in the design process.
In Mural?
In Mural, yeah, it'll open the second page. So
I'm going to lose you. When I do this, here goes. You still there?
Yep, I'm here. Let me just share this real quick. So what I'm thinking is maybe we'll just do a modified kind of something that's a little bit simpler than the full design process, but I will introduce this part. So within design process, the first step is to do is to empathize. So like step 1 is doing mutual interviews. And within the process, you start off with doing some sample questions, like what would we ask each other in terms of questions about forming an association. And then here we would go in and kind of make notes and then kind of work with that. But I'm thinking, just for simplicity's sake, that maybe we'll just start with doing mutual interviews and just kind of hear where everyone is about an association. So so we can ask anything. It's a little bit, it can be a little bit like an empathy circle, but you can ask questions. So maybe we can start with Kathy, if you want to interview Lou about his thoughts about an association, creating an association. We can take about maybe just 10 minutes to begin with. We'll try this. Well, actually 5 minutes. Let me set the clock here. 1 second.
Are you thinking 5 minutes?
Yeah, maybe we can do 2 rounds. We can do, you go 5 minutes,
right,
and then Lou will interview maybe Raj, and Raj can interview Maria, and she can interview me, and we'll go all the way around. And then we can also take notes if you have. This will be probably an easier space to take notes in. So I have a Google Doc here, which I just put in the link in, and I'll take some notes here too about what everyone said, plus we have the recording as well. and we'll just start generating some ideas on what everyone thinks about creating an association and ideas around it. And you can pretty much just ask any questions that you feel are relevant, that you would like to. So.
Okay, now this is a concern for me. Is there any way, while I am interviewing Lou, that I can see his real live face and connect with him?
Oh yes. Sorry about that. Let me get out of there. Thanks for
I want to
mentioning
talk to a
it.
piece of paper.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you for mentioning that. So, okay, you got. I'll keep.
I don't
time.
see him. I don't see him anywhere. Am I
Do you
supposed
have-
to go back to the Hangout or what?
Yeah, if you go back to the Hangout, then you'll see him.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to go back to the Hangout. All right. There he is.
Okay. Interview away.
Okay. So.
And the rest of us can take notes and also.
Okay, so Lou, I would start by just saying, just giving you an open space to just say whatever you initially want to say about forming an association, whatever comes to you initially.
I see. Well, I'll make something up, because I have thought deeply about empathy, but I have not thought deeply about a formal association.
Okay.
And so, I don't know. It's
I would say just
it's somewhat anticlimactic. I believe the world needs expanded empathy, and we're living. Part of oh hell, I don't know. I'm not against an association. If one comes along, I'll join. It's so it could be a short interview.
So you have thought very deeply about empathy for many years.
Yeah.
That moves you very deeply.
Well,
spreading empathy into the world, and you have not thought much about an association, and you're not sure what. Go ahead. Well, go ahead.
I mean that. Yeah, I said nothing, and thank you for giving it back to me. Here's the thing. Empathy is about building communities, among other things. It's about a lot of things, and one thing that empathy does is relatedness and relationships and community building. And so, part of the process of expanding empathy is this thing being present in a public space and letting others know about one's. It's the word. My association is to the word politics at this point, and I'm not a particularly. I'm a registered voter, but I'm not a big. Politics doesn't engage me the way empathy does, but it's like to influence. The trend that I have seen that I don't completely align with is go to the state legislature and create a licensing or certifying authority, and create a revenue model for whatever it is you're doing by having the state say you can make a living. It's like kind of crazy. I'm not sure I totally align with that because.
Okay, so but you do see.
But I could see.
Even though it's not totally simpatico with what you would think of as empathy, you're saying the word that comes to you now is politics.
Yeah.
That might have to do with an association that can go to the state legislature, create a licensing certification process, makes us visible, legitimate, and a way to create a revenue stream so that people could make money spreading empathy. Something about that. It's kind of like this isn't your favorite way to have to think about it, but maybe so.
Yeah.
So you got a whole minute.
The result of which there will be an association, and I will not be participating in it because that process doesn't interest me.
Oh, say more. Say more there. We don't want to lose you so quickly.
I mean, I don't know.
That kind of an association, that kind that has to do with licensure and all of that.
Well, I'll be busy writing another book, and you'll be, down in Springfield if you had lived in Illinois, talking to some legislature over an excessively large lunch about how important it is.
Okay, so
There's nothing wrong with that, it's just.
So as your time is coming.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I feel like I have not been very self-expressed here. Because I haven't thought about it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I can create some enthusiasm.
I think you're doing great. I would think in the future I would want to be asking you, well, what kind of an association would work for you? Clearly, I hadn't thought of going to the state legislature either. So there might be some other kind of association that's more like community building that might be more attractive.
There might be.
Conclusion. Okay, that's 5 minutes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Lou, if you'd like to maybe interview Raj.
Raj, I get to interview you. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
And who are you? I mean, do you have like a short bio? You gave one before, but like, what do you do in your day job, so to speak?
What do I do in my day job?
Yeah.
I work with people who have challenges being heard and understood, who want to be heard and understood.
So you're a voice for the voiceless.
Either in leadership role or in organizations or just in relationships. I'm a coach and a trainer.
Okay.
In nonviolent communication and certified coach.
Right. Well, I have an astonishingly naive question. What is the difference between nonviolent communication and violent communication? What would violent communication be? I mean, violence, if I took God forbid, if I took a 2x4 and hit somebody over the head, that would be violence. But, what would violent, that would not be necessarily communication except in a non-linguistic sense.
I think, Lou, you're asking a question which is, violence is such a continuum. People don't wake up one morning and become violent.
No.
And, because somebody's needs haven't been met as a child, and they have tried to express them multiple times, and they have not been met, then they start to use force to get those needs met, or they use violent, aggressive words to be. So violence is not just in the physical violence, the violence of words that so many of us are using. It's difficult to get away from the violence of words. Physical violence I can remove myself from, but how do I remove myself from those violent words that someone may have said to me, and I keep repeating them over and over again?
Okay, that's helpful. I mean, go ahead. I mean,
that's what I'm saying is that violence isn't just it's on a continuum, and it's not just about physical violence. When I was in a workshop with Marshall, when he said one time, giving somebody the silent treatment is a form of violence. Because they're so used to receiving a response from you, now they don't know how to reach you. You don't speak to them. You don't respond to them. That's a form of violence.
I wasn't there, and I can understand devaluing language, using a language which makes somebody, in African American communities, the N-word. In every ethnic and racial group has probably terms of describing aspects of a stereotype which are devaluing. And I would call the silent treatment withholding. And I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if everything, my concern is if everything is violence, then nothing is violent.
Well, the thing is,
we're on a slippery slope. Calling somebody sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, sometimes names are hurtful.
That's right. So if I'm going to describe nonviolence the way that Marshall Rosenberg described it, is when I'm at peace with myself, in my thoughts, in my words, and in my actions.
Well, sometimes the purpose of education is not to make you comfortable. It's to get you to think
The awareness.
and to feel.
The awareness.
And so, you know, we have a lot of kids in school, if I may use that devaluing term. We have a lot of young adults, young people who expect to be comfortable.
Right.
And when they're made uncomfortable, they complain to the administration that they're being violated. I don't know. I mean, it's like I really struggle with that.
Yeah, I think the non-violence or the whole movement by Gandhi or Martin Luther King or any of the people that the names come up in association with that, it's not just language. It's about behavior. It's about my thinking. It's about how I think about a situation, how I interpret somebody's behavior, because it's in my thoughts, it's in my words, and it's in my actions. And it's not just about changing my language, it's about changing my thinking.
Well, it's for sure that when people are spoken to devaluingly, and there are dignity violations and empathy violations, people get angry.
Absolutely.
Maybe they should.
Well, the anger is when my needs are not met or my values are not honored. I become angry because somebody's not honoring and seeing my needs and values. And somehow anger is associated with somebody is doing something wrong and I need to correct this.
Well.
Okay, I think that's the time. That's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Raj, if you'd like to interview Mireya, asking her about her ideas about an association.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you for that. It was very inspiring.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What a privilege to interview you, Mireya. That's where I want to start. Is that tell me about yourself. I would love to know who you are. I see this young image in front of me, and I'm totally delighted to have you be part of the circle.
I enjoy hearing this. As I so I would say that who I am, what I is what I bring to the world, and I really would love to see a world where we listen empathically to each other, and where we are also in a way educated around empathy. And even I think that my biggest desire is to see communication as a subject in schools. And in that subject, a big part is empathy. And this is huge. I mean, there are 2 trainers in Slovenia who are implementing NVC in the school because one parent was so excited, he offered a lot of money to get this done. And so they would wish those teachers to spread this then. But this is several years past. It's only one school, and I mean, it's huge what they're doing, definitely, but it's very slow. And this impact, for me, I would love to see that this spreads much faster. And so seeing these two trainers doing this, I'm also concerned because our world develops much faster than such projects do. And so my idea with around an association is that this could be a place where people get supported by each other, people can learn from each other around best practices. There could be a development of maybe even a bigger, how to say, like when there would be a big project of implementing empathy in schools or in other areas. It doesn't quite matter at the moment. I could imagine that qualitative support from each other and collaboration could really empower and speed up this process of spreading NVC. well, I speak easily of NVC because that's what, for me, I'm so much connected to. But generally, it's for me, it's empathy and how we use this in our communication. And I would add to that that my personal input that I would really like to bring in is that design, or so creatives, have this inner power to bring something with a natural force. And so my understanding of human-centered design, regardless of what IDEO, for instance, is giving about it, for me, this is really about this sentence Edwin said: to design, you need to empathize with people you design for. And so when designing any project, when designing any organization, or even your own personal business around bringing empathy into the world, I am totally certain that having this design or creative force around it speeds things up, it creates more impact, and it brings people together who are both working with communication, but in a different way. And so they can, I think, really empower each other in that. And designers think slightly different than maybe researchers do or some trainers do, because they simply have a different background, they function differently. But I think that when this is joined, this can really give great value to not only do small projects, but to expand them. So that is where I really want to see this combined, and this is really my mission, to integrate these visual communication and nonviolent communication, or is it empathic communication, to really join this to empower each other.
I'm so appreciating the clarity and the vision that you are holding, and have just one question for you. What do you think is holding back this whole impact from becoming more global or more universal?
The first thing that came up in me without thinking is that the holding back is around a fear of separation, a fear of not having a sense of being enough united, of not being able to, let's say, honor each other's authenticity, respect each other's authenticity, simultaneously bring together what is needed to co-create. And I'm strongly guessing that that personal blockages hold people by themselves already back, of not knowing how to do it. Some people do.
As you were speaking, what comes to mind is how to get away from creating a them and us.
A what?
A them and us.
Yes, yes, yes.
They're not doing it wrong. We have the right answers for it. This is how it should be done, etc. It's that separation about them and us. We have the answers. You don't. The system you are in is not the right one. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. This is resonating for me. To trust that we all have our gift to bring, and we are, none of us is all knowing. So we also need to let go of things that we desire and want for the purpose of all of us, and not for our own sake or for sticking to our own personal vision. We can run a private business next to it, I think, to fulfill the personal.
Yeah, my time is up. I'm so.
Yeah,
I've very much enjoyed talking with you.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you.
Let me just write this down. Okay, so Maria, if you'd like to interview me, and the others, you can take notes if you're taking notes. Here's the page if you're not there. Let me just set this up. And interviews.
I must admit I don't type too well, so please don't count on me to make the notes.
I also said, of course, I'm taking notes on a piece of paper as a 70-year-old would do, not in the Google document. So should I would click on that and I could take notes there while some.
Yeah, there's, if you feel comfortable with that, there's that link will open up a Google Doc and you'll see the space for typing. So
Okay, I will do that. I mean, everybody else can do it too. I don't want that to be my job. But I'll try to do that. And Ray is going to interview Edwin. Is that?
yes, okay.
Yeah, I'll try to.
Yeah.
But I'm not the secretary.
Yeah, if everybody just does their best, we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, let me get the time to 5 minutes. All right.
Okay. So, Edwin, I'm very curious to hear why now? Why is now the moment that you initiated now this setting up of the association? Why is it now?
Well, it's interesting. Kind of what's coming up is almost 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I was talking with Surah Hart, who's an NVC trainer. And we're talking about empathy and how to, and she said, and working together and stuff. She says, yeah, I really, if there was like a association or something that she could get behind that. It was always kind of in the back of my head in terms of thinking as design. You want to address people's needs. I was in the process of building up the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, interviewing people. So I guess there's a series of steps. I thought, well, I'll create a movement, interview people, people will rally. Then I tried setting up an empathy tent at the Occupy Wall Street, then also here, kind of raising the flag. I thought people would rally around. And then I found that people just didn't really know about empathy. They just don't know. I was like in like downtown Berkeley or in the Occupy Wall Street environment, and people are like at each other's throats. The second day I was there was a knife fight, and I mean just the and people just didn't know how to do empathy, do empathic listening, and let alone kind of think in terms of a movement. And so then I've kind of shifted to, what we really need is training around empathy. So it's like, okay, we need training. So I'm really, I should have been working on creating, really good empathy training instead of maybe all these interviews and stuff. And then I thought, well, how do we go about building a training? Is like, well, get together with other trainers and start networking. Like you all are experienced, very experienced, and Kathy's been doing this since the 70s, this empathy training. So for some reason there's no associations or no network for getting trainers together. So I thought, okay, an association. Let's just get people together and start networking. And I'd done something similar when I was in the computer field. I started a computer user group, which is kind of like an association of computer users, and that seemed well. So I guess that's how the idea came about, is really around the training and then getting trainers together to create some good online trainings.
Yeah, so that recalling your moment in Berkeley where people actually didn't really know what is empathy. You could see that if this little group doesn't know that probably a huge group wouldn't know, and you cannot serve this whole group. So you need more people to get together to organize something bigger.
Exactly. It's like the Trump rallies. Look at how the people are not. They're combating the Trump us versus them with more us versus them. There's no. We're all in it together. creating a force that everybody listens to everybody else, and we foster this empathic way of being. And there's just very few people that can hold that presence, and it's really going to take training, and it's going to be, it's going to mean people who value this getting together and supporting each other, and to kind of be on that at that theatrical level, right, at these rallies, which I'm seeing. I mean, they're like starting to get violent, and they could easily start ratcheting. The violence could actually start. This could be just the beginning of.
Until it escalates.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so when you imagine, let's say, continuing this setup of this association, which difficulty would you see within the trainers who are interested in this and in this group? And second, which difficulty would you see with what comes out of it, to how to, like, what is the difficulty to bring it forward into the world? So then this association is set up, and then what?
Yeah. Well, the first problem is getting people together to even begin with, because there seems everybody's kind of off doing their own thing. Like here we are, 5 of us, and I really promoted this, to a lot of. There's like 60 people on the list now, the email list, and this is just 5 of us who have shown up. So there's something about involvement. That seems to be the number one problem, is people just, why are they not getting more involved? What does it take to generate involvement? So that's the first part. The second part is, even though people are very into empathy, it's amazing how the empathy community can't even get along with each other. Or it's really the infighting and the lack of it is just, it's like astounding. I mean, it's like I've had some of the worst experiences I've had has been like within the NBC community, where we're going out and doing some empathy work, and people just kind of at each other's throats. There's something about, we got to kind of get better at it between ourselves too. So that's kind of like a block that needs to be overcome. We got to kind of live it somehow too. So involvement and really living it, because it seems like when you get into the empathy, it's almost like we pull back the rug, and it's like it's Pandora's box. Like what comes out is really like, it's like all the demons that have been suppressed, come out, and it's scary. It's really, so I think that's the time here, though. So thanks for the interview.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, thank you too. It was inspiring to, especially this last part was bringing up a lot of
personal.
Yeah.
I saw Raj's head nodding too. So I'll interview Kathy. So
Okay.
I'll take over the note taking.
Okay.
All right. I need to find the Hangout so I can see our faces. All right.
Okay, Kathy, can you tell me about what comes up for you around the idea of creating an association? Because you've been in this field for a long time. You've been working on this, and you've really been working. I can really see it. You've really wanted community. You really wanted to bring people community, and you've been working at that. And so, just wondering, what do you think about this whole association idea?
I really resonate with the failure of empathy with each other, and I think we have to start there. The personal is the political. We are the microcosm where we need to practice these skills before we can have any pretense of bringing them out into the world. So for me, for instance, if we have a discussion list, I would want to set up some ground rules that we will have this discussion using active listening, especially if we disagree with someone, and that there might be a moderator that would help people do this, and that anyone who's watching us would see us demonstrating empathic listening, active listening in our interactions with each other. And I'm not interested in being involved if we can't have that as a ground rule to work out our own differences. And everybody splits all the time. There's the person-centered people are over there, and the focusing people are over there, and split, split, split. So maybe we need to analyze, why is it that in order maybe to survive in a competitive society in terms of making money like we have, at least in the United States, why people have to keep splitting and identifying themselves as unique. It seems like there's a financial or survival basis to that, and we need to somehow, go in a different direction there. But I'm very hopeful. Every time you've had one of these gatherings, I love every person, and I'm so thrilled to see how many people are out there loving and working on empathy, and I've been too alone. So, forget the past. Let's do it. And Edwin, when you said, "Gosh, only 5 people came to this meeting," I said, "Wow, 5 really fascinating people gave up 3 hours on a Saturday morning or night, wherever you are, to be here. That is amazing." You could create the whole association with 5 people doing the work. And that's part of what I want to present maybe in my second 5 minutes, how to keep it simple. I'll say a little now, the International Association for Focusing-Oriented Therapists, who needed a better name to begin with. But, finally, a few people created a website. And that website is the association. We have not gone to the state legislature's step. That's the association. The website, a few people put it together. There's a discussion list. There's a place where people can list themselves as a trainer to get some clients. There's a place where you can list articles and books. There's an introduction to what is empathy. There's a listing of empathy training programs. That's put together by a few people. It doesn't need everybody to do it, Edwin. There's a lot of people who are going to run the other direction if they have to put time. Another thought I have is that people who are practitioners are just trying to survive. It's very hard to make a living teaching empathy. And people who are working on a PhD, for instance, or who, like Lou, have an academic position, they get paid to think about empathy, and they maybe have some time. But I think practitioners are like kind of desperate. So that's why I want to keep it simple. We can have a broad association. It will get status just from having a name, a website. The website, it's called www.focusingtherapy.org. You need a simple name for your website so people can find it. It brings in a lot of traffic, and from there people can click on people's articles or books or enroll in someone's online course. Not so hard to do. So maybe don't think the first step is to get everybody together and get everybody to agree or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going on and on. Isn't that 5 minutes already?
Yeah, that's what it is. So I was hearing there it was really about keeping it simple, also to really model it, that we come together and we model kind of an empathic way of being. Keep it simple, building a website kind of is the association, and also that trainers are kind of feeling desperate, and that that's something to address too.
Get something out of it, because we have a website where they could list themselves. Maybe they pay $40 a year, and we'd have a way to drive some business there. So then there'd be some payoff to them for being part of this association.
So some real support for practitioners, trainers, so that it would help them in finding work and.
And then I think separately there could be, I'm interested in a certified, I want to say focusing because that's my thing, certified empathy facilitator program. But the people who choose to get that particular certificate is a subgroup. You don't have to do that to be in the association. Okay.
Okay, great. Then we'll go around and see, who did you interview? Did you interview Lou? Was that?
I did interview Lou.
So should we mix it up? And if you would interview Maria, and then we'll kind of mix it up a little bit. And so you'll have 5 minutes for that.
Okay. I don't see her here.
Oh, just one moment, because
Okay.
I was I had it shut down. Oh, I'm back.
Okay, so let me ask and see if this works for everyone. I would like to make a mnemonic or something for your name. And I had spelled it to myself, and maybe if this is correct, everyone could do it. I think it's Miriel with an emphasis on the middle syllable. Is that correct?
Not quite, but I can offer you something in return, because I appreciate that you put pay attention for this. As I have in the what is it, in my leadership program, had a conversation with a participant who also tried to get clear on this, and came with a pronunciation that might support. So I'm going to copy it in the chat box, which is here. Did you get anything?
Yes, that is similar to what I was thinking. The emphasis is on the middle syllable.
Oh, like this, Samantha. Yeah, Mireille.
Miraya.
Yeah, super, super.
Everybody, it's the middle syllable is Rai. Miraya.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
that shouldn't count in her time, Edwin.
Thank you.
Not her time. I say. All right, so I'm interviewing Miraya. So this is our second go-around. In the first go-around, you said you'd like to have communication be a topic in the schools worldwide. It's happening in one school. Is it Slovenia?
This is here, but there are also NVC schools, so it's not like the first and single thing.
First of all, a parent had to donate a lot of money. Someone had to donate money, and then there's 2 teachers working on it, and it's like one school. It's like you want an association to support bigger applications. How can we bring this model to the whole world?
Yeah.
And you want to integrate design. You have an understanding, and I resonate with this, that I'll say it as you have to need to connect with the creative force in each person in order to have the motivation to get something to happen. And you want to bring together visual communication, MBC, empathic communication, and community, and you want us to empower each other through an association.
Yes.
Where would you like to go now in your time? What would you like to speak about?
Good question. I have a concern coming up. So the thing that kind of that I would see as a concern for having this to happen. I am guessing that as I think that the amount of people who could and who would imagine themselves contributing to spreading empathy, let's say empathic communication for the ease of this conversation, that is quite large. But as you earlier said, there is quite a bit of people who kind of struggle financially to do this. So it's either not their core business, or they do it simply voluntarily, like a teacher in the school who pays some trainings, goes on her own and uses this in her classroom with the kids. So it's not likely that she will spread this more than just with this children group. Then if we speak on a higher level of someone who is doing it professionally, my view on what I see about trainers around me is that there's just a few of them who really make a good living. Most of them, they work in business. So they are NVC trainers who work in businesses. And then those who work more with private people, they might be able to have a living, but they make a living just to live. They don't have more money, which would support them to spread it more, to have more impact, right? So I'm seeing that in some cases, people have the idea that with this kind of work, you're not allowed to earn money. This may not cost money, and you're not allowed to earn with it. I personally I fully disagree with this, because when I earn money with what I do, I can use for myself what I need to make a living and to live. But every penny I have more, right, I can invest into growing the business, including doing non-profit work, including collaborating with schools, or collaborating in, let's say, just practical way. I work only 4 days per week, and my 5th day is goes fully into doing non-paid work to spread, empathic communication. And so, in order to be able to do that, I really do have to earn quite a bit more on those 4 days. And it's not a shame for me. That's simply how it works. So instead of waiting for the money to come to me from other people, or from the government, or from companies who are willing to donate, I can create it. I have that power, right? So what can I do to empower myself to be stronger in my business, so that I have left over, so that I can contribute to the projects that I find value, and that I can move forward with, and maybe, especially with collaboration with others, we can better co-create.
So you see, you have a concern that among people who do empathy out in the world, there might be, at least for many of the people, a thing where you're not allowed to earn money. It's a bad thing to make money, not just by doing empathy, but in any way. To earn a lot of money is not a good thing. And you're saying, I'm not going to wait around for grants or donations or an association. I'm going to make as much money as I can using my skills, and that might mean making money from people in the business world, because they seem to be the people who have money. That is okay. I don't want to be put down because I work with the system or something. And if I can generate that money that way in 4 days, I can support myself, and I can create money and time to put into the more nonprofit. So you're maybe acknowledging maybe the world isn't going to fund bringing it into schools and bringing it into everyday interactions, but you're not going to wait around. You're going to make money where you can, and you'd like us all to feel okay about that.
Yes. And to also, let's say, acknowledge that either when you have the belief, I'm not allowed to earn money because it's not fair, I have more money than whoever else, right? Or I can't make money. I don't know how to do it. Whatever belief is going on, well, let's work those beliefs out.
Yes. So we might need to have support groups for empathy trainers on how to make money, and it's okay to make money.
Yes.
That's something we can offer each other. The people who've managed to do it can, and maybe even get paid for doing workshops to help uplift the other people.
Yes, it's a way to how can we empower ourselves?
Yes.
And then each other. And I'm not a child, so I'm not going to wait for my mom to bring my ice cream, right? I can do something myself and go and get it. So I would really like to see that people work out their limiting beliefs around the money, and start to see how they can use the money they make for a common good. And be that how shall I say, that bridge between, here is a lot of money, these 3% of the world, and how can I, with my skills and my offerings in a fair way, earn from this and be transition, or how do you call that?
Or the bridge is a good word, or the vehicle.
Yeah, the vehicle to bring that forward to places where there is no money. And it's not a shame for me to do that, right?
Absolutely. That touches me deeply when you would say the word shame, that you would have to feel ashamed of being successful or being able to make money. That almost makes me have tears there. People to feel ashamed if they're able to be successful. But to see them as a funnel or a vehicle to get some money out of the 3% and into the rest.
Yes, I can be a funnel because I have had the privilege to go to college twice and to have jobs and so on and so on. So how can I, in fact, if I wouldn't do this, there's a whole lot more people who do not get the benefits that they could be getting if I were to work out my beliefs around the money.
Yes. And so again, it's my words from the 70s are the personal is the political. We're not going to be an association that's going to change the world if we don't work on our own issues. And we have the skills to do that through NBC and empathy. So we need to provide that vehicle in our association for people to work on their stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was our time for that. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. You want to mix it up. I think you had interviewed Maria. You had interviewed Lou last time. Is that right? Or
no, I interviewed
you.
Oh, you interviewed me. Okay, so see, who should you interview then? What was the?
Who would you like to interview?
Who would you like to interview that hasn't been interviewed and that you haven't interviewed before?
Lou.
Okay.
Great. Here I am.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Mireya. Nice to talk to you.
Mariah.
Yeah, Mireya.
Mireya. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So I'm recalling the words you shared in your previous 5 minutes.
Thank you.
And I have a question coming up. If you would imagine that this association exists, and you're in it because you said you will be part of it if it's there. Now, what could you imagine a disadvantage of that association to exist? What could be the downside of this association being alive?
Well, I mean, it's easy for me to be negative. I mean, I'm a little concerned. I don't really want to go there, but because it's just so natural. I mean, the number of things that can go wrong is large. At some level, we don't need more rules. We need expanded empathy. And you know, it's just. I mean, and we do need rules. Stop on green. Wait. Go on green, stop on red, pay your taxes, right? I mean, things don't work without rules. And my concern would be to empower empathy, not compliance. And but that doesn't mean that, you know, non-compliance is another form of compliance. So that's an answer. Next question.
All right. So what do you imagine? We'll go opposite. What would you imagine that who in the first place could, in your point of view, benefit from this association eventually setting up a huge training?
Well, I learned a lot from listening to Kathy and Raj and yourself. I kind of went off the political deep end in my initial response, and people may wish to participate at different levels and in different ways. The wise association allows for different levels of participation. There may be people who are really into running the organization. They're into administration, and I mean they're good at it too. And there are others who may, want to network. On a good day, associations can be a useful, helpful, powerful way of meeting like-minded people. Birds of a feather, as somebody uses that expression. It's kind of funny. And so an association is good for that. Where are some like-minded, and then you find out, the self-psychologists are in one corner, and the client-centered people are in the other corner, and the neuropsychologists are in the third corner, and they don't relate anyway. That's, I mean, it's true. People can be difficult. Nevertheless, the idea is to promote values of inclusion, toleration, productive disagreements. I mean, agreement, when there's agreement, let it be, and sometimes disagreements can be productive. People, there's this narrative about rational discourse, people who debated in high school, which I actually did not, although learn those kinds of skills. You make your point, you allow the other people to make their point, you see if there's common ground. When politics used to work, I don't know if there ever was a time, but it's easy to idealize the past, and when politics was useful and people actually had an ability to compromise and take the other person's point of view, as I say, I don't know if anybody ever was real good at that, but I know that sometimes some stuff got done. Civil rights legislation was passed, amendments were passed, things improved, things were whatever they were, and they got better in some ways. And so I don't know. On a good day, that's what associations and organizations are about. Networking and expressing commitment and action towards common goals.
It kind of sounds like, are you familiar with, oh no, the word slipped out of my head, with like mastermind groups, where people from different fields, different kind of people with different backgrounds, but on the same topic get together and share about their knowledge or their concerns and all of that too.
Unless it's going to college, it sometimes used to be called going to college, but I get that. I agree. I don't know. I wouldn't know. So I like, what Kathy said made a lot of sense to me. People come together. This is who I am. Let's do some networking, or maybe there's more formal, rigorous processes which result in some kinds of documents suitable for framing, right? Like certificates and the like. I completed this, and who gets to say what counts? Because every mother, every father, every parent knows something about empathy. Every teacher, every doctor, every lawyer, every trainer has to know something about empathy if they've got customers. Doesn't mean they're good at it. Doesn't mean they use the word. It means, they've got something. They're able, anybody, unless you're a hermit, but then, even then, hermits may be very empathic with themselves. I don't know. I've never been one of those, but so there.
Okay, I think that was the time for.
All right.
So Lou, you can.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this.
I should pick somebody. We're running. Did Kathy already got interviewed?
Yeah, you have me or Raj.
And I spoke with Raj before, so you're up.
Okay.
And also, Edwin, I think I type faster and more accurately than you, so I'll
Okay,
be
you're
the
going to do it. Oh, great.
for
Thanks.
many other jobs you're doing. Especially
Okay.
I missed that. I just completely missed that. You talk more faster and
Typing.
more accurately
She's
than I
better
do.
at typing. Because
I
we've been
see.
typing in the notes here, and I have kind of a
Good.
sloppy.
I acknowledge your typing, whoever is typing.
I hate to say it, but I'm a good secretary.
This whole conversation is confidential, except Edwin will post it on the internet later. So the expectation, I just want to say, Edwin, as I interview you, the expectation of confidentiality, I mean, don't panic, it's essentially zero. Having said that, this is a confidential conversation. I acknowledge the inspiring work you're doing. What do you think this is about? When I've been. Go ahead. I mean, this is about you being self-expressed. And what's your vision for a Empathy Trainers Association?
One thing is I kind of like what we're doing here, this dialogue and kind of exploring empathy and doing it together with friends. Yeah. It's actually kind of fun.
Okay, I got that.
It's like I kind of like feeling, I'm really interested in the whole experience of empathy. So being together just with, everyone here in this group is very enjoyable for me. So that's part of it, is to have that
that's working.
Community.
That's working.
Working. So that's part of it. The other is I do think about, you talked about political. I'm like totally into, let's get political. It's like I would like to occupy, downtown Berkeley and say, we're not leaving here until you put $1 million into a fund to foster empathy in the city or something like that. So I think we can actually, really think about it. We got how many billions of dollars, trillions. The war in Iraq was between $2 and $6 trillion was spent. My God, $1 billion put into empathy training. I could go into tears when I think about this. It's like it's like the grief in terms of the suffering that is caused in the Middle East by America having gone in there and totally in an unempathic way and totally destroyed the country, set off this whole chain reaction of using unempathic means, thinking somehow they're going to have empathic ends. So I'm totally into being political and going into demonstrations. But you got to be networked. You got to have a community and support group to do that, and it takes time.
Okay, so political action, community organization, bottom up, act up a bit.
Yeah, and this networking that we're doing, because I'm really interested in learning, growing in empathy, and being around, you all is like a growing experience in the sense of community and support. I'm not so alone.
Well, to make empathy present, I get that the empathy, when it works right, empathy gets present in the conversation, and as you just said, that works. That's a good experience. You had a good experience.
Yeah.
And so, what can you think? What are the next steps to getting out the word?
I feel like I've kind of set a foundation for it. We've got a Google group, 60 people on there. We've got a Facebook group. We've got 900 and something people, on that. We've got the larger empathy, center, which has like about 30,000 people liking it. So it's kind of like a lot of foundational parts. The next part is to do what we're doing right now. Yeah. And I thought of using design because design is an emergent process, right? Yeah. That we have the intention. We're trying to find out. Actually, I guess it's a needs finding, right? We need to hear what everyone's needs are.
Yeah.
so that we can design the organization and it can emerge, because I really see it as an emergent, like, you know, there's other models of associations we can use, but we also want to hear the deeper needs that people have. Like I was hearing a need for you was, you know, you want to do trainings and you're wanting to make it, this empathy work sustainable. So there's a need for, you know, sustainability that you have there, and can we design support around creating sustainability for each of us? Because I know I kind of struggle with it. I know, you know, a lot of other people are struggling.
And so what, I mean, so what, you know, say more about that. Can you say more about that? What really, you know, if we had to prioritize in terms of things that are working or not working or somewhere in between, what do you see as a major thing with which you're struggling in getting this thing going?
The first step is we're doing it right now. This is more like a second or third step, and that's that we're getting together and dialoguing about what our needs are and what we want to do. So I think probably should have started with more what Kathy was talking about, is just let's hear everyone, let's create an empathic environment. We're doing kind of a question and answer kind of approach now. We could bring in more reflective, you know, empathy circle process to hear what it is that everyone's needs are. Then kind of capture those ideas, and then also ask the question is, well, what's next? What would you like to do next?
Well, here's a question. I mean, we're running out of time, but I want to say, what do you think? I mean, any thoughts on what would empathic politics look like? What would that be, without precondition or necessarily, you know, any requirements? What would that be?
Well, the first thing is I think of redesigning the social structures are all set up on a competitive model. So it's a total redesign of the justice system, right? Around empathic dialogue versus individualism, kind of a gladiator approach, you know, judgment, external judgment, and retribution. It could be, you know, mutual listening, working out the problems, coming up with shared solutions. That if there are prisons, that they're like empathy training centers. You know, I mean, it seems to me people are, you know, got a captive audience. They should, you know.
Definitely got that. Definitely got that. Yeah.
So there's that part. There's the political. It's going to take some kind of restructuring of the competitive model. You know, I think the whole social structure, the political system, would need to be modified to, you know, to get the, you know, something where it's a requirement that, you know, the different parties get together and have like empathy circles in the government, right?
Yeah,
that they would do mutual empathic listening.
That would be something that would be very welcome down at the State House. You know, if you could get people to listen to their opponents, it might shift some things. It wouldn't shift everything. But I think it would shift some things.
It would be kind of a step in the right direction. But we need, you know, to be able to do that kind of change, it's going to take a group that has a voice, because you know, we need, associations tend to kind of magnify the voice. So we're 5 people, you know, if we have a common association, just saying we're an empathy trainers association, I think already gives us some kind of extra clout.
It is about where's our power? Where's your power in the face of systems that don't work? I mean, any thoughts on that? Ultimately, it can come down to, you know, stuff is not working. Where's your power? Where's our power in the face of
our power is in listening to everyone. You know, when I did the empathy tent, it was like we were there. I was doing empathic listening with people. I was doing mediation. You know, I was doing, and people appreciated it. They, you know, and then we need to do training too, to not just hear them, mediate for them, but then make the next step that everyone starts getting some kind of training is kind of what I'm I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's the time. So thanks for
Well, thank
those questions. So I'm interviewing Raj. Okay, you're still muted. There you go. So let's see. So you've been hearing what everyone's been saying about forming an association. Is there any new thoughts that have come up, ideas percolating, what you've been hearing?
I think a couple of things that I want to bring up, and the first one is about what Miraya said, was about NVC trainers or empathic trainers or people who are in this field of spreading and compassion believe that money should not be part of the process. I see people putting a flyer up and saying, if you have financial issues, nobody will be turned away because of that. You know, I don't see myself going and sitting into a dentist chair and say, look, I have no money, but I have a filling that needs doing. Can you do this for me? How do we create that image of professionalism where we actually believe in the work that we do and we are okay to ask for an equivalent exchange for what we're offering?
Mm-hmm. So it's really, you're kind of building on Mariah's, what she's saying is that it's this thing about the finances, that there's this notion that by doing empathy, you're supposed to just give it away.
That's
and,
right.
you know, that, you know, other people aren't giving away their work. So you're really wanting to kind of explore this area about the value of what it is, what we're doing. The
value that we place on this conversation, this education, this shift in consciousness, the value that we place on it, you know, and that's really what I think was very inspiring for me to hear, and also how we need to look at how we promote ourselves, as you know. And when I often been part of conversations where when we bring up association, structure, standard, it looks like I'm imposing my power on somebody. I'm not so inclusive. I'm not meeting people's needs when I do that, when I bring up conversations of making standards, having an association or having a criteria. It's like, this is power over. Now you're not meeting needs for inclusion. Now you're going to be, you know, stomping on somebody else's needs. That's not what this is about.
So there's a kind of a, not only is it valuing the work and being paid and compensated for it, you're looking at the relationship of power, like that people see that you should be powerless or something, you should not have any power or deal with power, and maybe you're like looking at the relationship of empathy and power, and how do we work with that? And association is seen as a power over or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct. And you see, the thing is, we're all equal, but we're not equally equal. You know, how do we balance that? That when I am saying the role of somebody who has power, it doesn't mean that I am going to impose my power on you. It just shows that I carry a different level of responsibility in that role. You know, how come we don't have a chief empathy officer in an organization? We have a chief executive officer. Why can't we have a chief empathy officer? You know, how can we put this kind of empathy on the role of empathy being as important as all of the other roles? A chief financial officer is needed, but is a chief relationship maintenance, chief empathy officer needed in organizations?
Yeah, so like the CEO gets, you know, 50 times or a couple hundred times the income of other people because they're like valued. And then different groups have different value. And how about empathy trainers and people who are fostering empathy being socially valued? It's like, how do we create that value within the mind of the culture?
And I think the thing needs to start with, who are the empathy educators? How do they value themselves? How do they hold themselves in regard with their association with money, their value with money, and having an equal exchange for their services? You know, I don't see anybody giving me a free haircut at a hairdresser's, you know, but I'm willing to bring you into my workshop because I so badly want you to be learning this empathy skills.
Yeah, so it's really about we have to value ourselves then too. To start with, if we want the society to value what we do, we have to value ourselves too.
Yeah, yeah. So
You know,
that's
there's, oh,
yeah.
yeah, so it's really about that. There's, for example, within, like in America, teachers are really relatively devalued. You know, but if you go maybe to a Scandinavian country or even in Germany, where you know, I lived a while, there's like a respect for that position, which we don't have here. It's just, and how do you have ideas of how do we create that sense of value? What are steps that we could do as an association to create that value? I mean, I'm hearing value ourselves. How do we create that self-value? How do we create that social value?
Well, I think
Valuing.
when I do the work with Daniel Goleman on emotional intelligence, he talks about parents and teachers being the most important role models in a child's life. So how do we elevate the role of parenting? How do we elevate the role of education so that people, these are the models that children see. Children are hearing and emulating what parents are doing, what teachers are doing. So how do we create that? So I think, if, as Gandhi said, when we educate the children, we really make a big difference.
Mm. So
So
you're saying that if we teach the children that this is important, that from the get-go, then they will bring that in. It will grow through society. So that's one idea.
I think so.
Hmm.
I think so. And
What do
I
you
think
think? Sorry.
education system is a good in for that. And government funding allocated for that. You know, I think that those are the sources that we want to go to, is how do we put more funding into education? And the amount of emphasis placed on math and history and English, I don't see that being placed on emotional literacy.
What do you think about being kind of like politically active, like going to the Congress, setting up an empathy encampment, and saying we're not leaving here until you push through a bill that puts 20 billion or something into empathy training? I mean, how do you feel about the kind of that power activist, working through that power structure of the society?
I think another piece before I address this one is to address Kathy's piece is even the professionals who are working in the field of empathy are creating such a divisiveness amongst what is the best. Their way is the best. This is who we are. This is focusing. This is empathy. This is therapy. And when we want to unite within the professions.
Mm-hmm.
You
So you
know?
think it's more about starting with ourselves, kind of coming together,
Yeah.
uniting.
Yeah, because I know that if I'm going, let's say, and asking for some revenue, some other organization is saying, no, no, this is the way it should be done. Ours is better empathy than their empathy. So even the competition around whose empathy is supposed to be the better empathy.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Then I think, has everybody done a second round? Or no, somebody hasn't. Kathy, you didn't, right?
Oh, I did, didn't I?
Were you interviewed twice or just once?
I probably didn't interview twice.
Yeah, so I think you were.
Really? I must have blabbed a lot the first round.
Let's
Okay.
see. Yeah, I think I interviewed you, and then you started the second. So then it would be your turn
To be interviewed?
to be interviewed by Raj.
Okay, so someone else is going to type.
So I'm going to interview Kathy.
Yeah.
I guess so. Let me go back to face-to-face here, get out of this piece of paper that's not the same as being face-to-face. You are going to interview me. Hello.
Oh, hi, Kathy. I'm very moved by some of the things you've shared, and particularly around, that we keep splitting identities. And how do you think an association can be formed if we're so split in our own identities?
Great question. So I'm going to sense into this in my self-empathy focusing way. Oh, such a heaviness there, because I might just start by discussing how it happened in what I perceive as my international focusing world. So I'm going to start with how did it happen, and then maybe we'll get to how to avoid it.
Painful place, huh?
Yes. So this is the Focusing Institute. What happened there? on this issue. So when I finally have left it, I've been trying to leave it or be in it for 40 years, 30 years, more or less, and there's a lot of history there. But the last blow to me was I went on the discussion list, I went to the board. Eugene Gendlin, the founder of Focusing, has stepped aside at age 90. His wife, who was maybe going to carry that on, has died prematurely. So there's something new, a chance for a new way of forming. So I tried to get in there and change what I hadn't been able to change before. I said, in your vision statement, I want you to say that we teach experiential focusing and empathic listening skills. They will not do it. I finally got like a little footnote honoring Rogers. They won't do it. So you might want to think, why won't they put this in their mission statement? And it's something about they don't want to dilute what focusing is. They think their survival is in being Eugene Gendlin focusing people, carrying on the work of that one founder. And that has to, what would Gendlin be if he hadn't left Rogers and become his own separate thing? So they are just so determined that that is where their identity lies, in what Gendlin is that Rogers wasn't. You know, Gendlin and Rogers worked together, and then Gendlin created his own self-empathy way. They are just, I would say, violent about this. And I keep saying, you are not honoring the work that I do, where my interest is more on the interpersonal empathy, not the intrapsychic, individualistic focusing. You're not honoring what I do, and you're also not honest, because if you really look at what focusing trainers do, they're teaching empathic listening all the time. If you look at the most dramatic examples they give of their effect on the world, it's because they taught people empathy. It's just not even honest, but they are so stuck on this is our identity. So that's what happened there. It's just a horrible thing. I mean, it made me an outsider because I was interested in empathy as well as focusing, and the way that those two things together built community. So it was violent, I'm telling you, for many years. So we need a broader identification of what it means to be an empathy trainer. At least we're not identified with any one person. We're not identified with Carl Rogers or Eugene Gendlin. So that is maybe a hopeful beginning for us. The International Focusing Oriented Therapy Association is very open. You know, there's at this point no rules. There is a way you can get certified as a focusing therapist, but inclusive, I guess, is the word. For us, I don't know why there's any reason why we can't just be inclusive. We can have panels about all the different approaches. Why not? That's fun. That's educational. Bring all these different people together and have them each have a chance to speak like we're doing. That's fascinating. So why not? I think that's what I'm looking for. I don't know if that answers that question, but
as you say, why not? I'm interested in your broader identification and the association.
why would the NVC people have to be trying to prove that what they're bringing is more important than what the self-empathy focusing people are doing? What's the point? We don't want to set it up so there's any reason to do that. Isn't it so much more fascinating that we are sitting here from a number of different approaches? That's the power. So
what does a broader identification and an association give us?
Oh, what does it do? Well, like Edwin says, just to be able to go, if you want to go to a legislator, you can say, I'm representing these 40,000 people. People don't listen if you're just yourself. Even to go to a school, if you can say, I represent all these experts in this field, and I want to bring this here, they might listen to you. So there's just power in the name, just having the name. And then there's the support, the mutual support. And as Muriel said, empowering people to do larger action. This was a problem in the Focusing Institute. Gosh, they just didn't believe in having meetings, working collaboratively. Well, you could never do anything really big if you're just each individual. So to be able to bring it together so we can take somebody's really good model for teaching empathy in the schools and just get it out there. A lot of places. That's something I'm never going to do myself.
So collectively, we can be much more resourceful. Collectively, we can reach more people and paint a bigger picture that gives us a real model to demonstrate what we're about.
Yes, and as we talked, also those who are really good at making money could support others who aren't. There's so many different things we could do just from associating. Jenlin hates terms like association because it does make it rigid and scary in the way that Lou says. Now all of a sudden it's going to control you. You say, we're just associating. It's an activity we're doing. I love it. I'm loving it today. And my time is up.
That's just, I know my time's probably up. So what's a body sensation of what it's like for you to have expressed this?
I'm being very expressive. The anger and frustration from the past experience and the excitement about what's happening right now. We are doing it. We are associating. We are just getting to know each other and getting to know the difference, the breadth of who we are. That's what empathy is about. It's about loving the uniqueness of every person. Why would we fight with each other?
The being with is enjoyable, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Totally.
Without having a desire to correct or fix or change something.
Or have power over someone.
Yeah. Just enjoyed receiving what you shared so passionately.
Yes, and as you were saying, we have power. There's a book by one of the focusing teachers. We have the power of personal persuasion. If we go around and we just each have an equal turn to say what we believe, we can persuade other people. That's different from having power over them and saying, I'm going to make you do this. You have to follow these rules.
Yeah.
I'm into empowerment and power, personal power.
And sharing power.
And sharing power, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was our second round. I think, did everyone do a second round then? So we can do either a short third round, like with the question of what do we do next?
I suggest, if this is possible, given your model, could we? You really got to me when you said, in talking we can lay out our needs, and then the next step of human design has to do with how to fulfill those needs. Is it possible in the time left you could do a little human design from whatever we've generated here, or is that not?
Yeah, I don't think we could, because with the design model, we take what we've done here and we put it into Post-its, and then we spend time kind of organizing all of it and then putting it into kind of like categories and seeing how this is all kind of falling into categories. So I'm trying to think of, it doesn't.
Well, in the remaining time, could we at least maybe talk about it the way you are now? I want to honor that you brought us together to show that design model. I don't want to have thrown that out, the baby with the bathwater of that. So I would feel better if we did a little of that, or you just even described from what we've done, what would come out of it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let me do that then, just to give a overview. That's.
Oh, is that everybody else? I don't want to be the only one.
Unless there's others, I can share it on the screen to kind of walk everyone through how this would look using the human-centered design framework.
How do other people want to spend our last half an hour or so? Is that okay?
Testing, testing. This is Luke. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, because my visual seems to be frozen, but I'm still here.
I can see your visual.
Okay,
I
good.
see you.
Yeah, well, I just can't see myself, and that's not essential. I already know what I look like.
We can see you. But
You haven't
I
Okay.
don't want to
changed.
take my advice. Is this okay with other people as a way of us to spend our last
I mean, the
time?
short answer is yes, I'm okay. I mean, I actually have, here's what I mean, so here's a thought. I have the floor. Here's one thought. Yes, you know, people arrive and show up, and one has to be prepared to hear what we think they need, or what they think they need. People need something. They're, you know, for whatever, you know, so they're expressed about what they need, and that's important. And that's client service, and being accommodating and matching their needs is on the critical path to serving, and also on the critical path to political success is what is your contribution? Okay, because you know the needs are almost infinite. People are suffering, and you know, and sometimes it's due to poverty, and sometimes it's due to upbringing, and sometimes, you know, we're all, I mean, and sometimes it's due to whatever it's due to, right? And it is important, I think. I mean, I ask myself, so Lou, what's your contribution, right? And people on this call, I'm going to go out on a limb, we're high functioning. We're more towards the top of the food chain. Uh, and it doesn't matter where you are on the food chain, because if you think of yourself as all the time needy and needing to be given to, doesn't mean that it's not so. People are dealing with a lot of things, including survival. Nevertheless, the way to get out and to be whatever politically successful is for people to contribute. Now, I've now said that 3 times. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, so contribution is important in terms of everyone. You know, how does everyone want to contribute? It's almost like a.
My concern is that this empathic circle way doesn't end up with a product in the way that a human design, and that's why the human design might be important. I'm really trying to combine and honor both things. We've had this wonderful conversation. We might go away and nothing comes of it. Whereas if you now added the human design component in some way, it gets more solid.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw away. I want to try to integrate them. That was my own.
So what would work for me is if I can just show the design process. So we're going to slowly over time train people in the association how to do human-centered design. Maria and I, we actually did an 8-hour workshop together on design, which maybe we can lead sometime in the future if there's enough people who are interested. We'll really go in, and I'm hoping that the design process becomes one of the tools for the association, that we get everyone familiar with the design process and can use that. But I feel that what we're doing now with mutual interviews, you know, empathy circles is probably the better way to really start to make these connections, and it will take it kind of baby steps and move move into design. But since we're here and I have it up, I'd like to introduce, kind of go through the process, an overview just for about 5 minutes of what it goes, how it looks, and then maybe we could just do one more round of interviews, just saying what next. You know, how would you like to contribute? What would you like to request? And then do that. So let me just show the screen quickly here. The human-centered design. So we're in the human-centered design process screen. The mural. This is the page 2. So we've just actually done the first part. The first part is we go through and we interview. So this person here would interview the next person, and instead of us taking notes, you know, in the Google Doc, we would have been writing the notes onto these Post-its, but as individual concepts onto these Post-its. And so, for example, we have different, you know, different issues. You know, there was the issue of, you know, conflict within groups, about what, you know, there was all kinds of different issues that came up. They'd all be written down here. and then we would have the full field of ideas, and then we would go through a phase of actually sorting the ideas by topics. So,
okay, so these would be like, instead of these Google Notes, which are more like a narrative, people would have pulled out concepts that could just go on a post-it. Like
exactly.
Mariah often used the word empowerment. That would come out to me as a concept. I'd stick under her name, empowerment, or or different things.
Could I contribute?
Please. That's
yeah.
great.
So when we did in the previous workshop, when we did this whole process, I much enjoyed that we did these note-taking from the interviews, but people had prepared them. We done that during the week. We interviewed people. And then we would together look at one interview, and let's say I interviewed someone, so I would briefly tell the most important things that I had noted down, and then others in the group would write them into the notes, which could be a word of empowerment, but it could also be a full sentence. Okay. Then in the next step, we would come to organizing them in what I'll just lift my notebook here. As I'm doing some harvesting, so we would have, for instance, competition, money issue, inclusiveness, and there is a number of things under it. So these number of things would kind of end up on the notes, but then the next step would be to group them. So which things actually sort of come under a common topic, such as inclusiveness or money. So under money, we have a lot of concerns, we have positive things, and so on. So then you start to filter out and come to the essence of what is in the interviews and what themes keep repeating in our conversations. Was that helpful?
Absolutely, that was. Yeah, so it's like actually the money one. That's true. That was the big one, right? The issue of money. So here we would have come up with the topic, money, and then we would take all the interview parts that had to do with money, and we would sort it. Put it into a category of money. Maybe the other one was power, so we'd have another heading, power.
Yeah. And you could move these little post-its down and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. And there is one thing very handy about having these colors, because later when we go into the sort of the design part of so the prototyping, you might get lost, you might get stuck of, but what was this about? What was actually being said? And then you can see that for instance, you are dealing with the power topic, and you can see the colors of the little notes. So you can refer back to the interview visually. You come back to the interview.
Each color represents a different person. So you would always be able to say, Kathy said that, let's go back and find it. Great.
Exactly.
So another thing that happens at this point, so we would have a whole field of categories. It would be money, power, and ideas, to go forward. So all kinds of different categories would get created, and then we would be looking for a problem area, and then you create a theme, and you find themes and insights, so that's what we do, but then you come up with a how might we statement. So we're seeing that really money is a real problem. And actually it becomes a theme, and it's actually, but we're looking for the problem within the money. The problem that I was hearing was, like Raj, you were saying it really nicely, is that people don't value themselves. Right? That we don't value the empathy. So the question might be, how might we foster the valuing for empathy trainers or for our work? So we would come up with we actually started with the overall design question. So there's an overall design question: is how might we co-design a mutually supportive empathy trainers association? That was our first overall question, design challenge. And then we're kind of honing into one aspect, which might be how might we foster more valuing of our services. And then once we'd have a field of questions like that, we would vote on which one do we want to go into depth with. And like I like the one valuing our services. I really love that one. So would have said, okay, let's work on that one. And then we move to the next page, which is our brainstorming. So we would start off with our design challenge here about how might we foster valuing of our services, financial valuing of our services, and then we would go through and spend about 10-20 minutes just brainstorming ideas. So we get a whole field of ideas. So everybody comes up with their own ideas, as well as when one person shares the idea, other people have ideas that branch off of those. So we create a whole field of kind of ideas that we feel excited about. And then we do the same thing. We start sorting those by category. Like, what are our ideas about, maybe we have to become political. Well, or maybe it's about we need like an empathy circle around that. So that would become an idea. And then we say, okay, our prototype is to create an empathy circle around valuing our work. And then we would create a prototype, and this is the prototyping section. We have time to talk about what our prototype is for valuing our work. And then once we have our prototype, we would actually go in and test it. So we have that as our idea, and we would schedule a meeting. Say we're going to do a meeting on valuing our work, and then we would actually do it, bring some people together, and then test the idea, and then get feedback on the idea, and then we meet again. So we would have tested it, and we meet again with our feedback that we have, and then we would start the process again. So you just keep going and going until we really hone in on one, product, service, system, cultural idea, process, or whatever. So, and you just keep doing it over and over again. So that would have been, But I think that what we're doing is very similar by starting with an empathy circle, empathic listening, we're gathering the insights. I think what we have here is kind of our next step will be, well, we can actually do that. We can go through is with what we've done so far, what are the next steps we would like to do? Is there, so we have...
Let me just say, as the one who was have the highest aversion to doing this. Now I'm excited about it, and I don't know if it's true for other people. Now you guys did the interviews outside of your meeting, so people had already been interviewed, so that already brought some connection. But I could imagine a workshop where we spent the morning. It takes a while, even though we each only had 5 minutes, and there's only 5 of us, doing this. And then the afternoon inputting it into there, because now we know so much. So I really do want to integrate them, because I think we would come out with a more forward-moving product next step at the same time that we've built community by doing this together. So that's kind of exciting.
Great.
So Kathy, this is really, I'm appreciating what you're saying, because that's where we want to go. Not just either we do the circle part and the real comfortable part, but we also want to look at this other part and not have it be either or, but be a blend of it, so that we can serve the collectively in a different way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would like to add something to that, because now we've heard each other, and still, I mean, it was quite a lot, so things also get lost. And by going through this, what Edwin just explained, is for me a very good way to together filter out what was actually being said. And it kind of, for me, it's much about inclusiveness, because we start to see that I said things in different way than you, and we might not have heard it, that it was actually the same topic, which really pops out by putting this on the notes.
Yes.
And in the end, we find out actually we're talking about the same thing. and we're on the same page, but you come from a total different field than I do. So it brings our topic together, and it still appreciates our authenticity.
Yes, great.
Well, and also we start to see what might be our differences are really not differences.
Yes,
We're
this,
referring to them in a different way. We're referring to them in a different way, but it's leading us to the same thing.
An action step, yay!
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. I appreciate that, Miraya.
Action step. When was that your next thing? What are our next?
Yeah, and I just add that the one thing about design is there's a divergent, so everyone can share their thoughts, but how do we bring those thoughts together? Because a lot of times the divergence can diverge into conflict, and the design process allows for the openness to divergence, and then it also brings everybody together again on a shared topic, because you can vote and come up with the agreement. And then the brainstorming, you diverge again, and then you come together on a focal point. So it's a process that kind of allows for this divergence, convergence, kind of back and forth. So that's very powerful, because the beauty of empathy is it's so divergent. There's so much can get generated, but how do we converge again? There's another aspect to this that is we generated these ideas. There's something within design called empathy maps, and that's something I think would be kind of interesting to do too. Is we could just interview one person kind of in depth, and then create an empathy map of their experience. And I'll just show what an empathy map looks like here. So this is within the design community have this concept of you want to create a model of what did the person say, and what do they think and feel, what do they hear, what do they say and do, what do they see, what is the pain that they're having. So for example, Raj, you were talking about the pain of the empathy work not being valued. So that's like a pain would go in, like the not valuing, and everybody had some pain. So everybody gets an empathy map for themselves. So we take all those Post-its, and they're all the different colors here, but we create an empathy map for one person. So you get a whole picture of who that person is. And I actually think that NBC has a huge amount that it could contribute here, because these empathy maps could be broken into the pain, which is an unmet need, or the feelings as met or unmet needs. So I think we could actually redesign the empathy map a little bit to say, what are people feeling? So Kathy, you mentioned, I feel excited. And what is the met need you're feeling there? You're feeling, I'm not quite sure what the met need is, but you're also feeling, kind of heavy with the lack of maybe inclusion with the focusing community. So you can kind of break and create these models of what people's inner state is, and then this becomes a tool too that I think that everybody in the association we can create an empathy map for them. So that's just some ideas about going forward with these meetings. And Maria, are you about to say something, or?
Yes. So it's like imagining this, like this empathy map on a certain question, and interviewing yourself, in fact. And when more people do this, but only a few people show up in this meeting, it's like we can use much more contributions to still, get from a bigger group of people the contents out and the directions of where this could be going. And so in a way it's almost like a possibility that every meeting for a few hours on this topic of just gathering what is alive in all these trainers in this association, to on different topics gather information from them in a very empathic way, because for me such an empathy template is it's very workable from knowledge of empathy and being in touch with our feelings. So it can create we can derive a lot of content and knowledge of what is alive in people in this, but not everybody has to be present every time.
Great idea. Like you could even just have a discussion on the discussion list. What are your thoughts about such and such? We'll bring those to this meeting where the people who are fascinated by that, we'll make them into a design.
Mm-hmm.
You say to have people. I would just say let's be careful about ever saying that everybody has to do something. Like, oh, everyone's going to get to learn human design. It's like, no, probably not. And if you say everyone has to learn human design, that it becomes a has to. You see, it crept right into my language. Lose fear.
Mm-hmm.
I would more say everyone will have a possibility. This will be one of the things people can do. Because some people aren't going to be interested, and you don't want to exclude them. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, so there's within the empathy map, we can see what were you feeling about that thought? What was the feeling you're having just now, for example?
Yeah.
Around not having this imposition that everyone should do this.
Yeah.
What is the feeling? Like a little anxiety or?
Yeah, so we could explore that, but I'm just saying in this newly forming little thing, let's avoid saying,
oh, okay.
Everybody has to show up at the empathy design meeting. No, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
They can just say hello. They can be in the association.
Yeah, so give everyone the choice to kind of follow their path through the association, kind of have it be an open path.
Something like that.
Okay. Well, that was, we only have about 15 minutes, so I had thought we could do a kind of what next, maybe just an open, a minute going around what next. And I have some notes here. Lou, would you like to share what next? Any thoughts about what's next?
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. What's next is more work on design, more work on literature, more work on what are the agreements, or maybe even, here's an idea, what is the mission statement of a empathy association, right? I mean, simply stated, this is not the truth, but this is an example. The mission is to expand empathy in the community. I mean, now, so what's the mission? What's the mission statement? And that should be about a page long, or whatever, 3 bullets, 10 bullets. So there's a to-do. Well, everybody writes a mission statement. And has to. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just making this up. Here's the thing. I mean, I'm going to lean into the wind. I have a lot of practice. You want to lean into the wind. You don't want to spit into the wind.
Would you be willing to do that? Create a draft agreement and a draft.
I mean, the short answer is yes.
Okay.
I'll write. I'm good at that sort of thing. I'll throw together a paragraph or something, and really, it becomes an exercise like this. I mean, send me what you think I should include in there. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to do this. But if you send it to me in the next 48 hours, there's a chance I may include it. And if I don't, then we can iterate it later, right? I mean, there's not a deadline on this, but.
So you would be prototyping a mission statement.
Well, I'm going to write up a paragraph or two.
Yeah.
I'm going to write up a paragraph or two.
And then we would.
Of an empathy association. That's very doable over the next week or so. So that's my thought.
Okay, would you like to send that to us or to the whole email list?
Yeah, well, I know for a fact I've got your email, Edwin, and I probably have the email of whoever else is on this call because you sent. I don't want to blast the world on this because I don't want 60 emails coming back at me. I'm already my email is a mess, and it's like I need some work as it is.
So
But
just
you're going to coordinate, Edwin. You're the coordinator, and if I have the email for everybody on this call, you all will be included. That's for sure.
Okay, so you'll send it to everyone on
Yeah.
this list, and I'll send that
Yeah.
email.
If I don't, you'll give me the email, and we'll get it handled in the next day or two.
And Raj, I don't believe I have your email. If you want, we put it in the chat window. I have everybody else's.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we got a draft prototype agreements ID list and a mission statement draft or prototype, and
Right.
you'll send that to our groups.
I see here in your communication, Ms. von Bremen, Clement Ongeta.
Clement is not here.
Celia may not be here.
I'll send
CEO.
it. I'll send it out to us. That's Edwin.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me put that on my to-do list.
Okay.
And okay, here we have. I'll put this into. Thank you, Raj. You just put that into our list, and I'll put together a list here. Okay.
Can I respond to the question of next steps?
Yes, please. I'm taking notes here too.
My feeling monitor, the immediate thing was like, oh my gosh, next steps. I just gave you 3 hours. You want more? So that's just me. That was the feeling. I just gave you 3 hours. So I'm just noticing that it just seems like there's so much to do. There's so many different discussion lists, I can't even keep track of them. So I'm just saying a little overwhelming. So let me check what would be any next step I will do. I would be willing to do. I'd look at that mission statement, certainly. I would look at that and interact with it. Let me think anything else I would be ready to do.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's already a lot what we are doing in that whatever's this messaging, Facebook messaging group we started, which is about the association. I think it's already being a lot to have people keep saying hello, introducing themselves, and it's kind of bothering me that I'm already not having the time to engage with those people more. Like someone comes on and says, I'm taking care of the homeless in this city. I would like to have more time just even there to say, tell me more. So I guess I don't want to move too quickly. I feel like that's already a big thing, just starting to gather people together. And that takes time. So maybe that's my next step for right now. I'll try to keep up with that messaging group and something like that.
Okay, keep up with the messaging group, and that you'll look at the mission statement that.
Keeping up with the messaging is gathering people together. You could call it that stage of becoming an association, just gathering people together is an important first step before we move on and leave people behind or something.
Okay, great. Then. Raj?
I'm willing to look at the mission statement and the agreement. I don't know if Lou's doing an agreement and mission statement or just a mission statement. Willing to look at that and give input. I'd be interested in looking at something about the design, if there is something that I can go through where I can become familiar with what the process is. Mm-hmm. So that when I'm on the call and you're demonstrating something or the sequences of things are lined up, I know where I'm at in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I get educated about design?
Because then I'm not losing connection with what's happening with my frustration that I don't know where I'm at in the process. Mm-hmm. I can stay comfortably engaged in the conversation instead of where does my cursor need to be? Where do I go right now? Or what am I doing?
Okay. Is there more or anything else?
I'm good for now. enjoyed the
Okay.
post.
Great. And Maria?
Yeah. I thought I was clear about what I was going to say, but I'm actually not. I'm a little unclear about how going on serves us in terms of people not getting overwhelmed, of respecting that people have their own whatever going on and do this on the side, and once they can and once they cannot make it or they're not willing. So I'm aware that I have this tendency of sometimes wanting to have more clarity than either is needed or that is possible at a certain point. And so it's a matter probably of just seeing things unfold with the energy that is present. And see where that goes. I very much like the idea of getting more clarity about a mission statement. I would love to add to it that also a purpose and a vision would be very contributive to understand of what is the force that is driving us and where do we want to be going, and the way to get there is our mission. And I kind of can't see any project or any business or any association or whatever it is without having clarity about this, because that is, most companies that don't run very well, they don't run well because employees don't have any clarity about this. So without this framework, people just do what they do, but they have less engagement. So I'm liking, Lou, that you brought this up, because this is something that can also be shared on the Facebook group or in the discussion group, doesn't quite matter. And maybe there I'm imagining that it's not necessary to have everybody agree upon, but to more have a group, whoever shows up, to agree upon, let's say, maybe a choice of 2 or 3 things, and then have only a poll in the Facebook group, and whoever votes, and if you're not there, you're not there. It's okay. And those who do, they do, and so at that moment, that is just what is going to be birthed out of, the energy that is present. So I guess my sentence at this moment, which Kathy already said in a way, keep it simple and let us not think too much and complicate too much and sure, we go for inclusion, but I would not like to see that all what we want is going to limit us in moving forward.
Yes. And I really agree about having a model that combines some kind of consensual input, inclusive input, everybody can say, but then some group of people who show up put that together,
Yes.
make a decision, and people can vote on it. I really liked your model because we could sink trying to have consensus about everything. We would just, gosh, the focusing group, we could have sunk just trying to agree on a name. It was like, whoa. So yes, I like your model. Inclusiveness for everybody can have input, and then a group can make a decision, and that can be revisited later.
Yes.
For this time, this energy.
Yes. And if people are very interested and engaged, they will show up. It's their decision, it's their choice. And I guess for me, everybody's welcome to engage and to contribute. So,
but if they have the energy to show up, then they're there to make the decision. I like that.
Yeah. And then otherwise we can mourn that sometimes we cannot be present in two places. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was hearing there it was unclear how to move forward, but you want to do it without being overwhelmed, so you're looking for clarity. You like the mission statement idea and the vision. There's also a vision statement. It sounds that having a clear vision statement would be helpful. Would you be willing to create like a little draft of a vision statement just to kind of get the ball, prototype to get the ball rolling and send it to us?
I would be willing to look at that, and I'm also wondering then, like with a purpose, I could look at that. However, I'm also guessing that as you initiated this came out of certain needs and certain observations that you have seen going on. If it is more effective, if you would be willing to look at that, or I can take it for me too. It's no problem for me, or to have maybe a small talk about that.
Okay, that'd be great. Like if you created a little vision statement, I create one. We just have a little dialogue, just to get a little prototype, something to kind of start the dialogue going.
Yeah, and you have to review for Lou. Everyone to know what is the difference between a mission statement and a vision statement.
Don't worry about it. I would not worry too much about that. I actually have 2 minutes left, and then I acknowledge your all empathy, and I honor the work you're doing and that we're doing. So I'm going to just unceremoniously exit in 2 minutes.
Hey, it was so fun being with you. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you for your contribution.
We can close the whole meeting. So you're also doing the graphic drawing,
yes.
Mariah? So that's something, so I put that there.
I'll say that, Raj, you had mentioned you didn't know if Lou was also doing, Lou used the word agreements. And I'm not sure we're ready for agreements yet, but if you would be willing to think more what you meant by those as separate from those other things. Not that we're ready to do it, but it's a different word.
Well, I think Mariah just put one agreement in there about when a group of people have decided to take on the responsibility they create. That's already an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of thing I'm referring to.
So that's another thing.
That's right.
Just keep that in mind.
We've got agreement, vision statement, and mission statements.
And
three.
Up with the networking.
Yeah. And networking. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just quickly say I'm going to keep the meetings going. Keep the ball rolling online. We have the next meeting on the June 8th, which is I think a Wednesday. So whoever can make that can make it, and we'll also kind of go through what we have here and kind of clean it up a little bit, kind of try organizing the material, and we'll just keep meeting, and it keeps emerging. There's no big, it doesn't have to be any, it's just we'll just see how it emerges, keep the dialogue, the empathic dialogue going. The next meeting.
Exists.
Yeah.
This association already exists. We don't have to make total rules about it. It's there. It exists.
So, yes, that's what I'll be working on.
I want to say one more thing that
okay.
I don't have time until September, but in September or sometime, I do want to offer some kind of an online. I've done it by an email group, or we could do it as a hangout or something. Every group that Edwin has done, I have fallen in love with every single person that was there, and then we don't necessarily meet again. And I'm a community building person. I don't want to lose any of those people. I want to make an ongoing format where all of us who have met through these things can just check in with each other, can support each other. I just don't like losing anybody. So when I have time, I'll try to talk to that.
Okay, so moving towards creating some kind of an environment where we can maintain connections and not lose those connections.
Absolutely.
Okay. Actually, before, let's see, there was a link that I wanted, Raj, for you before we left. You were wanting more about design.
Yes.
And I'm going to put a link in that's kind of like a gateway to information that's in the chat window, and it'll be in our Google Doc too. I'll put it under your name, kind of to do the next steps list. So those are just some links to dig in. So just so we've got that checked off the list, I want to get that to you. So great, then excellent. I feel great. This was a lot of fun. I'm really appreciative everybody came, and we're just going to keep the ball rolling. I feel like I'm getting more and more friends, more and more connections. So this is great.
Nice meeting you all. Bye-bye now.
Okay,
Yes.
bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in Maria too when you come here in the Bay Area. So that'll be great.
Yes. Yes.
You're welcome to come to Canada in November, to Whistler.
In November. In
November.
in November. I'm. So you're familiar with François Beausoleil?
Who?
François Beausoleil?
Yes.
Yes, so in November we have another retreat in California with the LP that he is facilitating.
Yeah,
so,
there's NBC too.
Yes, yes, I do 2 programs with him at the moment, and I absolutely am thrilled about it. So
enjoy that. I'm glad you're enrolled in that. It's all of us doing the same work and spreading compassion.
Yes.
I do want to say I accidentally checked out of here, but now I'm back. I do want to say that in the earliest listening focusing community with Jenlin and all of us graduate students back in 1971, Marshall Rosenberg was an active part of our group. He wasn't in the group, but he would come. We all learned NVC. He played his guitar. He and Jenlin were involved in a big research project at Mendota State Hospital with Carl Rogers.
Right.
Marshall was one of the therapists who was chosen to be in that. So, we're all together. We've been together for already 40 years.
Do you know Alan Rolfe?
Yes, I do. I knew him at that time, and I've been talking to him recently, and I know he's an NVC trainer.
Yeah, he's one of our trainers in Whistler.
And he's offering empathy. He, with Jim Iberg, who was another one of those 1970s people, are offering, I think, empathy training specifically to NVC people, something like that. Yes, we're all together.
Edwin, we're all in it together, so thank you for bringing us together to have this wonderful conversation.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.